Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Behar and Bechukotai. The question of the week is, what is the practical, spiritual significance of a Chok, known as the irrational mitzvot? So this week's Torah portion, Parsha Behar and Bechukotai, the second Torah portion says, In Bechukotai telechu, if you will follow and observe my chukim, my statutes. We know there's three types of mitzvot. Mishpatim, rules that even if the Torah wasn't given, we would observe them to have a civilized society. Eidos, which are testimonies. For example, we keep Shabbat since God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. We observe Pesach to commemorate going out of Egypt. And then there's chukim, statutes. That means they're rules without any reason. Irrational mitzvot. So the Rebbe brings a very powerful teaching from his father as a known Kabbalist to explain the idea of a chukah. What is a statute? And he says as follows. He takes each one of the letters and explains them spiritually what they are. The ches, the kuf, and the hey. He starts with the hey first. Hey is a line on the right, a line on top connected, a gap, and then another line, which represents the three worlds. Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, creation, formation, and the world of action. Bria and Yetzira are connected. And we know when it says, Barasiv Yitzartiv Af Asisiv, there's a gap between formation and the physical world. And that's why there's a small gap in the hay. The same thing also practically in our world. So we operate out of thought, speech, and action. So generally speaking, we think, and then we talk. And it usually goes a pretty even flow. When it comes to the world of action, there's a gap, there's a disconnect. And that's what you have, the gap between speech and action that represent in the hay. That's what the spiritual component of the hay. Then you have the ches. What's the ches represent? When thought, speech, and action are all connected one to the other. There's no disconnect. That means anything you're doing, you spoke about it and you thought about it. That's the ches in the world of Kedusha. What is the kuf in the world of holiness? So the kuf is where you have the right line, the left one, and then the one on the left goes all the way down. What does that mean? That your actions are not just abstract, but they're anchored into the world. You're doing mitzvahs to elevate the world. So kuf represents where you transform the world. So the Rebbe's father explains like this. The way it works is Hashem created the world with the hay, which means thought, speech, and there's a gap to action. Our job is the avodah of the ches. Our spiritual work is to connect our action with thoughts and speech. A step further, our job is to take our thought, speech, and action and bring it and make it part of the world. Internalize it in the world. That's a general avodah. Sometimes, as the way the alphabets are set up, not going from aleph till taf, from the beginning till the end, but actually going from the end to the beginning. It's called tashrak. Taf, Shin, Reish, Kuf, counting them backwards. So based on that, the Rebbe's father explains that the Kuf represents where you engage in the world, and then you go backwards, you create a connect between our action and our speech and our thought, and then we go back to the way Hashem created the world. But then he says sometimes you just jump right in. You skip the process of creation, where there's a disconnect, and you start right away with Chok. What does a chok mean? You start right away with the ches, where thought, speech is connected to action. When thought, speech is connected to action, the action transforms and elevates the world. So to answer the question, what is the spiritual significance of a chok? The irrational mitzvot? Where you jump right in and connect your thought and speech to the world of action, and you go ahead and use your thought and speech and internalize it in the physical world and go ahead and elevate the beautiful world that we're living in. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib, Shlom ben Yosef, and Rachel bas Lipa. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information, please see our website, chabad.swf.org. Have a great and blessed week.